Thank you very much, Undersecretary Hickey, for that great intro that's going to move us to our featured guest, John W. Quinn. But instead of me introducing him, we are going to let the video speak for itself.
Well, a Tucson man's story of triumph is reaching across the country with the recent release of his memoir. John Quinn's book is titled Someone Like Me, an unlikely story of challenge and triumph over cerebral palsy. I have a copy of the book right here, and in it, he talks about how he rose to the ranks of Chief Petty Officer in the United States Navy while keeping his condition a secret the entire time.
Well, I say the future's unwritten, and I'm living proof of that.
One of 8 children, John had a struggle that was all his own. Despite having cerebral palsy, John Quinn's parents didn't want him treated any different, and he wasn't.
And when I fell down, my parents didn't come running over all the time to pick me up. They wanted to see if I would get up on my own.
And he did. Growing up, he spent years in physical therapy, wearing corrective shoes and eye patches to help his alignment.
And every case is different, unique to the individual. And I'm very fortunate to have a relatively mild case.
Still, Quinn says the disconnect between his brain and his muscles makes every movement harder. But despite his so-called disadvantage, he would follow in his brother's footsteps and join the Navy.
So when I decided to join, I think my parents crossed their fingers and said good luck.
But at first, it didn't go as well as he'd hoped. He started by lying to the recruiter, hiding the fact that he had cerebral palsy.
I didn't want to be labeled as that sailor with cerebral palsy. I wanted to be judged on my ability, not my disability.
But during the initial physical, it became apparent something was off.
The duck walk, that's what everybody remembers. You know, the prior service people come in and they always, tell the applicants about the duck walk.
It was a struggle for Quinn to get into the position, and once he did, he just fell over and failed the military physical. He went home devastated but not defeated. Immediately, he started training his muscles to perform better and eventually do the duck walk.
I can't say that it gets better, but you can manage it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Manage is really the key word, I think.
Obviously, it can be possible to join the Navy, but it'd be very difficult. This gentleman overcame quite a bit.
Endless laps around the basement of his parents' home, he molded himself into a chief petty officer.
Any success that I've had in my life is due in large part to my parents, who told me that I could do anything that I wanted to as long as I worked hard and never gave up.
Well, Quinn's struggles did not end with his enlistment in the Navy. He battled depression. He became an alcoholic. He faced heartbreak. These are all things that he talks about in his book. He now works as a motivational speaker and a constant inspiration to not only those with disabilities, but to everyone who tries to keep their dream alive. Aaron?
A great story. Now here in...
Ladies and gentlemen, our 2012 National Disability Employment Awareness Month special guest, John Quinn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Undersecretary, thank you very much for your kind words and inspiring remarks. I want everybody to think about something. I want you to imagine that you have a brain disorder that affects every muscle in your body. Because of this, you can't walk on your own until you're about 3.5 years old. Every time you want to move, you have to put thought behind movement. You want to walk? Tell yourself, pick up your foot, set it down. Pick up your foot and set it down. Move your arm. Now, you have to undergo grueling physical therapy all through grade school. You have to wear heavy, clunky, orthopedic shoes, these black shoes that make Frankenstein look graceful. Wearing eye patches. You get teased, picked on, bullied, laughed at. You have to decide to wear long pants all summer long to hide your pipe cleaner legs. But then you're 18 years old, and your dad says, hey, you need to get a job, son. What do? You turn towards this big company, this billion-dollar company that's in your hometown. and you go in for an interview, and you get the job. You start out on the ground floor of this great company. For the next 20 years, you work your way up into upper management. You travel all over the world meeting wonderful people, working hard. All the time, keeping your condition a secret because you'd want to be labeled. You don't want to be thought of as different. Hi, everyone. My name is John Quinn. I'm the author of Someone Like Me, an unlikely story of challenge and triumph over cerebral palsy. I've just given you a snapshot of my story. I do have cerebral palsy, that brain disorder. A lot of people think it's a disease. It's not. It's a brain disorder. And it affects over 800,000 people in this country. Oh, and that major corporation that I talk about, that billion-dollar industry, well, that's the United States Navy. It's a distinct honor for me to be here today. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here this morning, especially my contacts, Tiffany and Glenn. Thanks for all your hard work in setting this up. I got to be honest with you. This speech that I'm about to give, it's not the first one that I wrote for this occasion. My initial attempt was filled with facts, figures, and percentages. It was a good speech, but it lacked the true emotion and deep passion. It's been rising up within me for some time now. So I've decided to scrap that version and talk to you in a way that sometimes only a Navy chief can. Straight and to the point. Disability awareness is on the rise around the world. If you Google cerebral palsy, you'll find a wealth of information that was unavailable just a few short years ago. Social media sites have allowed parents of special needs children to connect and serve as a platform to share common experiences. National campaigns such as the one we're kicking off here today they're key in addressing vital issues that those within the handicapped community face daily. Ones of inclusion, employment, and equal opportunity. Conferences, seminars, and increased public discussion help shed needed light on a segment of society that I believe many people think are beyond help. We need to change that perception throughout the land, and I need your assistance. Consider this your call to action. If you think that one person taking action cannot make a difference, let me give you an example of where it did. In the 7th grade, I was on my junior high school wrestling team. I was a strapping 75-pounder. It was about 2 weeks into the season, and I was struggling. You see, I was born with cerebral palsy, which is that brain disorder that I talk about. My brain doesn't send all the signals to my body. And so wrestling, that's not what you want as a wrestler. Wrestlers are athletes that have to move gracefully around the mat. They anticipate moves ahead of their opponent, and they're able to think quickly on their feet. Well, I was thin, I was weak, and I moved around the mat with about as much grace as a box of rocks. I was short on natural talent, but I was long on desire. I made the decision to keep my handicap to myself and my teammates because I just wanted to be part of the team and not become that wrestler with cerebral palsy. But one day the coach, he called me into his office to tell me that I had been cut from the team. And then I needed to clean out my locker. I still think about it, and it's just, I had tears in my eyes as I left the office, only to find the school's best wrestler, an 8th grader, Phil Freeman, sitting there, taking off his wrestling shoes. I told Phil that I'd been cut from the team. He looked at me for about 5 seconds. He got up, and he marched directly into the coach's office. Coming out a couple minutes later, Phil informed me that you're staying on this team. I didn't know what they talked about until many years later. But Phil told the coach, if John goes, I go with him. Now think about that for a second. That's an 8th grader stepping up for a 7th grader, somebody that he had just met just a couple of weeks earlier. That, my friends, is action. My parents took action in their own unique way as well. Now, they didn't have to fight the fight that so many special needs parents wage for their children. Well, the ones with school boards, testing agencies, and hospital administrators. My folks took action by simply allowing me to try things. They let me be a kid. Their guidance to me was simple. Just go outside and play. Now, I fell down a lot. I scraped my knees, and I got in a lot of trouble with my 7 brothers and sisters. I tell everybody I wanted to join the Navy to get some privacy. You know? But my parents allowed me to try anything. And as long as I was willing to work hard, and as my dad, who was a tough Detroit Irish cop, he said, just don't come home crying. So they said yes when I wanted to join that wrestling team. And they said yes when I wanted to join the Navy. I think they had their fingers crossed behind their backs for that one, you know. But I was influenced by 2 older brothers that had served before me. I remember being 11 years old and my oldest brother Mike coming home from boot camp in 1973 with short hair and dog tags. I just thought that was so cool. My point here is that my parents allowed me to try. They allowed me to seek inclusion on my own terms and in turn find my place in the world. I think society could learn a valuable lesson from Edgar and Shirley Quinn. I took action by opening the door to that recruiter's office in 1981 and further by keeping my cerebral palsy hidden from military officials. I made this decision for 2 reasons. One, I didn't think the Navy would let me enlist. And 2, and much more important to me, is I didn't want any special treatment or any special favor. I didn't want to be known as that sailor with cerebral palsy. I was seeking inclusion on a level playing field. You know, much like the wrestling team, all I wanted was a chance to prove myself. And for the next 20 years, the Navy put me out on the mat and said, go ahead, kid, let's see what you got. And prove myself I did. Serving around the world on 2 aircraft carriers, a battleship. If you ever get a chance to walk on a deck of a battleship, by the way, please do it. They just turned my ship, the USS Iowa, over to the city of Los Angeles. If you ever get a chance to get out there, please do. It's quite a thing to serve on a battleship, especially. I served on a destroyer. I am even a plank owner or a founding member of SEAL Team 3 in San Diego. When I got orders to SEAL Team 3, I was so new to the Navy, the chief said, hey, you got orders to SEAL Team 3? I said, what kind of ship is that? But, you know, I'm so proud of my time in the service. I've got sailors that are still serving today that I trained, molded, and led. And it warms my heart to see them do so well today. And now they're guiding their own troops as chiefs and senior chiefs, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You know, one of the first questions people ask me when I hear that I served in the Navy with cerebral palsy was, how were you able to accomplish this? Well, the first thing I say is you need to buy the book. But, you know, looking back at my time in the Navy, I realized I took the proper action to achieve success. Working with the SEALs early in my career showed me ways that I could get stronger, both mentally and physically. I took those lessons and I still apply them into my life today. I also became very good at my job, which earned me a reputation throughout the fleet as someone who could be relied on in any situation. Having people focus on my skill as an administrator kept the focus off the physical limitations that I sometimes let show through. You know, when I retired from the Navy, I could have gone the traditional route of many of my shipmates by getting a job in the defense contracting world. And I almost did. I mean, the offers were there. All I had to do was say yes. But then I met a young boy with cerebral palsy, and everything changed. Trevor looked at me, and his family looked at me in a way, here's a successful man with the same condition as their son. And you know, I knew right then that I had an obligation to try and share my story with the rest of the world. And I started writing the very next week. I had never written anything for publication before, but I knew I had an obligation to at least take some action and try. I often wonder what would have happened if I told the truth about my CP from the very start. Would the Navy have allowed me to enlist? Well, I got the answer shortly after my memoir, Someone Like Me, came out. Men and women from around the country started contacting me, seeking my advice. You know, they all wanted an answer to this question. They said, I have a mild disability, Mr. Quinn, and I want to serve my country. Should I keep it as secret as you did? My response has always been the same. No. Speak the truth. It's the best course of action. Come to find out, that might not be the case after learning that some of these young kids are not even being allowed to take the entrance physical. They're being left out on the sidewalk, frustrated in their desire to serve our country. Now, let me be clear. I'm not asking for a lowering of standards to allow entry. As someone who has stood the watch, I fully understand and support tough standards for military enlistment. What I'm asking for is simply this: just allow them to try. Sadly, that's not happening in the military or civilian workforce either. There's a reason why the employment participation rate for people with disabilities is at a shockingly low 21%. Employers are fearful of people who are disabled. They see someone in a wheelchair or using a prosthetic, and they automatically think that that individual is less capable than an able-bodied person. Nothing could be further from the truth. People with disabilities have proven to be some of the hardest working, most dependable workers out there today. I have a mentally challenged brother and sister who get up and go to work every day. They take great pride in their jobs and love being able to contribute to society. I mean, their employer would certainly attest to their value. They come in to work on time, always dressed appropriately, are unfailingly polite and respectful, and work hard without complaint. I mean, you should see the smiles on their faces as they cash those paychecks. I believe this country must do a better job employing people with disabilities. Now, the Navy taught me, never state a problem without offering a solution. So I've got a few suggestions. Employers can conduct a disability audit of your company, business, or organization to ensure strict guidance to federal law. The U.S. Small Business Administration, in partnership with the U.S. Department of Justice, publishes the Americans with Disability Act Guide to Small Business. In it, employers will find specific ways to improve service for those with disabilities by addressing such issues as physical removal of barriers and obstructions in parking lots, handicap parking space guidelines, proper door width to ensure easy wheelchair accessibility in both front entryways and company restrooms, proper aisle width and counter height, employee training, and how to better promote businesses to those with disabilities. Now, although some of these needed adaptations sound expensive, most changes can be made relatively inexpensively, and there are tax credits available to help businesses defer large construction costs. To those in the manufacturing sector, I suggest you take a look at your company's product, whether it's computers, pickup trucks, or microwave ovens. Ever thought about coming out with a line of products to fit the specific needs of the disabled community? Now, I read a letter last month that a high school student by the name of Matt Walter recently wrote Nike. Now, Matt has cerebral palsy, which affects some muscles in his hands, making it impossible for him to tie his shoes. Matt asked Nike to come out with a line of basketball or running shoes with an auto-lacing closure system to secure his feet. What a great idea. And one that I believe speaks to the untapped potential of modifying existing products directly to the disability community. Now, if I was going to start a business today, and I was looking for some employees, I would turn my attention to the highly capable pool of talent that is our nation's veterans. 3 words that veterans of this great country know very well are courage, honor, and commitment. To those that have worn the uniform of our nation, these words have meaning, depth, and feeling. Veterans have lived them on the beaches of Normandy, the jungles of Vietnam, and in the searing desert of Iraq. When a young man or woman willingly raises their right hand and swears an oath to protect and defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic, they are demonstrating for the entire world to see the true meaning of sacrifice. By hiring former members of our military, employers are gaining skilled employees who can then take the values that they carried on the battlefield and apply them directly into your business. There are several tax credits available for businesses that hire veterans, including the Vow to Hire Heroes Act of 2011 and the Returning Heroes Act, just to name a couple. I strongly encourage employers to hire a veteran today. It's really the best investment that I believe a company can make. You know, there was a time in our nation's history when segregation ruled the land. People of color were not allowed to eat at the same counter or drink from the same water fountain as our neighbors. Women were not allowed to vote or serve in combat. I remember I was on board the Dwight D. Eisenhower, the first combatant ship in the Navy to have women on it. A lot of my shipmates were like, "Oh, that'll never work." Yeah, it's going to work. It's going to work just fine. And it has. It has. You know, with the passing of laws such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, we've come a long way as a nation. But I feel we have a long way to go. Just like the civil rights struggles of the 50s and the 60s, I believe we are on the verge of a disability rights movement heading into this decade. I really do. This movement is one where people with disabilities are looked at as equals throughout society, where wheelchairs and prosthetics vanish before employers' eyes, and people are judged on their abilities and not their disabilities. It's time to make this a reality in the workplace. You know, the National Council on Disability Chairman, Jonathan Young, agrees. Last month, he stated on his website, as stated on their website, they released their annual progress report on national disability policy. The report notes progress where it occurred and takes recommendations to both the executive and legislative branches where necessary. The chairman states, in the current era of fiscal restraint, our nation's long-term fiscal stability depends in part on creating meaningful opportunities for Americans with disabilities to contribute to our nation's collective well-being while eliminating policies that trap people with disabilities in cycles of poverty and dependence. I couldn't agree more. You know, and I urge you to join me in this effort to increase disability access and opportunity across the nation. All you need is an open mind and the willingness to take action. You know, the Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal. And I agree. But without action, those words are quickly reduced to just another slogan. You know that 8th grader, the one that stood up for me to the wrestling coach? Bill Freeman is now the assistant superintendent of the 4th largest school district in the state of Michigan. He stands up for 17,000 children every day. How do I know this? Well, Phil and I have been best friends for almost 40 years now. We talk every day. In fact, we talked last night. You know, and when I was getting ready to publish my book and the publisher contacted me and said, who do you want to dedicate your book to? Well, let's just say one name stood above the rest. You see what happens when you take action? You know, and you include everyone? You can change people's lives. My friendship with Phil has changed my life. Imagine if he hadn't have done what he did as an 8th grader. My life would be totally different, I can guarantee you. I wouldn't be standing here today. In interviews, I'm often asked, why did you write Someone Like Me? It's one of the first questions people ask me. Why did you write your book? You know, my initial thought in publishing my story was to pass along hope and inspiration to my readers. You know, it's been great to see that happen. But I've come to the realization that I'm on a bigger mission than gaining entry into the New York Times bestsellers list. My life's purpose today is to help level the playing field of disability employment. I want to ensure that everyone has the same opportunity to do whatever he or she wants to in life. Some call that inclusion. I call it equal opportunity. You know, I'll know I've succeeded when I start getting emails from people around the country saying, hey, Mr. Quinn, I wanted to let you know that I have a disability and I interviewed for my dream job. I was open about my condition and you know what? I got the job. I can't wait to get started. And who knows, maybe someday soon someone will be allowed to serve his country openly with cerebral palsy and not keep it a secret. And if he works hard and works really hard, maybe he can obtain the rank of Senior Chief Petty Officer. Huh? May God bless you all, and may God continue to bless this great nation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.